You talk first, Brakken. You push the button. It's your job to talk first.
It's been pushed.
Okay, there we go.
This is awkward because our level of planning today started with, should we do this topic or this topic? And the final piece to that was, should I intro or should you? And Kirk said, I'll intro. I pushed the button. He goes, you talk first.
I button hooked you. You didn't
You
know I
did.
was going to button hook you. No, I do have something I want to talk about first because this is new for me. And, we've been on a 3-year saga with you about injury and surgery and coming back from and modifying training. And it's knock on wood or touch wood, as my English athletes would say. I haven't had to do that. Haven't had to talk about major injuries or setback.
I don't like
And
how this is starting.
no, I don't either. And so I took an entire 8 days off in the beginning of November, end of October, beginning of November, with 8 months straight of healthy running, meaning nothing really took me out or set me back or anything. I had stopped running, not because I was injured or because I was burnt, because it was time, right? I needed a reset and it was the appropriate thing to do. A little burnt, but nothing crazy. Take my
Mhm.
reset, no injuries going into the reset. Things feel great. In my reset, this is the most bizarre thing. I woke up with a calf/Achilles cramp in the middle of the night, like day 5 of no running, that sent me through the roof. I don't get these. No idea where it came from. And my Achilles and calf was sore since, like, my rest week again. I'd gone 5 days without running. This is bizarre. And then I get back into running responsibly. I'm now just starting my 3rd week back. So I've had 2 weeks, 25 miles week 1, 35 miles last week, let's call it. And this Achilles is barking at me to the tune in which I don't know what to do. I've been on the treadmill, running slow and easy or uphill to preserve it, but I'm having a hard time walking around without a limp. Anytime I try to touch turnover or forceful push off on cement, it is like, stop, dude. Like, you're going to rip me in half. And it's after a break and it's with no purposeful training. And it's from a calf cramp or Achilles something in the middle of the night started it. Is that not the most bizarre thing? And I can't put a finger on it.
Sleep injuries are real.
Maybe later in life they are. Is that the stage we're in? Because you complained about this with your meniscus
MCL.
or MCL.
Yeah. We've now both injured ourselves sleeping. And that's really dumb. It's got to be hunting related. It's got to be something you were doing, hiking, or a position you were in the tree, or do you have new boots or anything you're doing?
It's so funny. So you're really intuitive, actually. Those are great. That's a great line of questioning because it's the same line of questioning I brought through myself. Like, okay, so how did I hurt myself while I'm not running? And now it's impacting my running.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me if this could cause it. And I'm sorry if the listeners are like, I don't give a crap, or they're interested to hear where this goes. But for those of you who've been listening, I've largely been healthy for how many years now? 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
After strings of injuries for decades, really. And so I do a lot of bow hunting up in a tree, and I use a saddle and then a platform. Think of a platform that I put my feet on that are the size of your laptop. That's all the bigger it is. That's what I stand on. And imagine somebody who works on telephone poles or whatever has like called a lineman's belt. It
Mm-hmm.
holds you to the tree or the pole, says like a safety measure. And so I spent days and days on end standing on this little platform the size of your laptop, tethered to a tree from my waist to the tree. I'm leaning back and my feet are in a shortened position, not like my toes are being stretched and pulled up, but they're pointed down
Mm-hmm.
as I am sort of angling out from the tree like a tree branch would.
That would, trying to picture the two angles, flex versus
Mm-hmm.
extended for sure would be the one that would give me problems.
So my toes are sort of pointed forward
Mm-hmm.
with a shortened Achilles and calf position as I sit in this saddle in the tree for hours and hours on end, days on end. and I'm still doing that on the weekends. Could that be it?
Yeah.
I can't come up with anything else. You think it's that simple?
Yeah, combined with sitting in a position like that for a long time, if then you had to get down and haul something, drag something out of there, if you had to then use it, like the initial use of it after it being shortened for so long could absolutely be it.
I don't remember a moment like that, but correct. I hope I
Could even be
described that.
getting down and jumping, like the final jump or whatever, just like one little weird
Mhm.
after it being shortened for hours.
The way I described it made sense.
Yes.
Like, point your toes and your calf and Achilles are shortened, and then just sit in that position
Yep.
in cold temperatures. Anyway, I don't know. But so point being is treadmill yesterday, treadmill today, and even that's like, buddy, you're playing with fire right now. Haven't run flat and fast outside since. So I'm navigating this soft tissue
Mhm.
injury thing. And every time I hear an athlete go, my Achilles or my calf, I'm like, ugh,
Mhm.
that's not going away tonight or tomorrow or overnight or this week. Like, those things just don't go away with the snap of a finger. And so I'm, one in that position right now. So it's an interesting thing to navigate. And the reason I wanted to bring it up, not because I need a pity party, because I certainly don't. My happiness doesn't hang on a potential injury, but my training will be affected. I will have to, it's like you come off a break and then your training starts with a fizzle. You're like, what
Mhm.
the heck? That's no good. But I think it is actually a really good segue into the topic today, because what you proposed we talk about becomes more and more top of mind in a situation where injury or fragility is part of your MO as an athlete. And
Yes.
so the reason I'm trying to tie it together, because it can be, and it's starting to get my wheels turning after you mentioned the topic. I'm like, well, I might be in the boat in which we're going to discuss today. So
Mhm.
that's my update and maybe segue.
Well, it's a good segue, but I'm gonna shortcut your segue. Not shortcut, I'm gonna roadblock it first by saying unasked for advice. This is
Mm,
the exact situation. This unexplained weird thing where I didn't like acutely injure it in any moment. This is when I tell people go see a voodoo doctor. Like
mm,
go see the chiro, get dry needled, get acupuncture, do some scraping, some dry needling, whatever it needs to be. This is the time that I think those are super effective. When I didn't
mm-hmm.
break something, I didn't tear something, I didn't strain something that I can put my finger on, but something's going on that needs to be broken up or released or worked on. The voodoo area, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, even though some people consider it real actual voodoo, that I feel like this is what it's made for.
I'm very pro Eastern medicine.
Mhm.
We could say Eastern medicine would be maybe a kinder way to put it. Voodoo would be fringe,
Mhm.
but I agree with you very much so. And I'm going to probably see the PT guys at our gym about it. They dry needle,
Yeah.
they have an acupuncturist. I'm going to start there probably, but that's not bad advice. That's for sure.
Okay.
Voodoo.
Well, the segue is that we always talk seasons of life, but with athlete questions or themes or problems. And one of them right now is that as people are approaching or in their off season, the athletes who are in their like development stage where they've improved, but they're looking to take the next step, oftentimes that next step comes in the form of increased volume. For people who always wonder, like, what do we mean when we mean volume? We just like literally size of training, amount of training, time, distance, duration, whatever you want to call it, increased training. But one of the common threads that's been coming up is I really want to do more, but every time I exceed blank level, either miles or hours or whatever it is, something starts popping up in my body. And we've had these conversations with people in the past who have decided to do things atypically rather than just I'm going to increase 10% per week or I'm going to increase 5% per week or I'm just going to bump right up to 40 miles extra per week. They've decided I'm going to go all in on a certain movement type and make that my thing. And then they become a different athlete because of it. Can you think of some people we've talked about?
Yeah, but I just want to clarify how you're describing this.
Okay.
You gave the correct description, but to dumb it down for people, because I need things dumbed down for me.
Mhm.
The simple way to put it would be, I want to do more, but if I do more via running, I will be injured and I can't handle it. So, what is my thing that's going to propel my running the best that
Hmm.
isn't running? What can I double down on to make me better
Yeah.
if I can't run the volume of the pros, so to speak? And how do I decide what that thing is?
Yeah.
Correct? Is that
Yeah.
what
Very
that's
much so.
what
And
we're
it,
getting at?
it may
Right.
be even running, but a certain type of atypical running.
Mhm. Well, you before we started recording, you started listing off some examples, and I think you should go with this one because
Okay.
you started the conversation.
So the first one I ever met in real life was Matt Novakovich. This would have been back in probably like 2012 or 13. And his thing became incline hiking and incline work on his Nordic track. He was the first person that I ever knew of that used an incline trainer as an athlete, not just as an exerciser. And he found that 20 to 40% incline, he could do almost unlimited work in that incline range, unlimited hours, and he didn't have his knee problems that he had when he ran a lot. And he went all the way in on it to the point where he was doing like 90% of his training
Mhm.
at 20% or above, and he would do hours per day. But he also ran a sub 16 5K at the time, which he hadn't done in years. He actually became a better runner because he was available to run and his volume was so huge that his his cardiovascular system just was enormously talented or fit at the time. And then you brought up Chris Woolley, which was when he did that Innovate competition. The brand Innovate put a competition for prizes for who could do the most vertical gain in a month. He decided to do his on the stairs, and so he did almost exclusively stair workouts for a month
Mhm.
and like hundreds of thousands of feet of gain. And his running improved. He PR'd in his 5K at the end of that. We hear these stories over and over of people who do these things. They decide like, this is going to be my thing. This is easy on my body. I seem to respond well to it and I enjoy it. And they go in on that thing. And suddenly they can do as much volume as they want to do, and then their running gets better. And then if they want, they
Mhm.
can handle more running because of that. But I want to talk about deciding on, discovering, and implementing your personal way of running big volume.
I love it. I love it. And now's sort of the time to think about it.
Hmm.
I mean, many people listening have A races at all sorts of times of the year, but for the bulk of people, we're going into base phase off season, starting to look towards 2025. And now is the time to say, okay, I want to go back to the lab and see how I can be better for next year. So it kind of starts now. Going back to your Matt Novakovich example, Matt, I believe you listen to this podcast intermittently, but so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he had a window where this formula worked perfectly for him, and then maybe it didn't, but I don't know how his training was going the back half of this sort of incline phase of his. But if I recall, it was like I can do unlimited engine work. I'm training for largely mountain races, so incline hiking is purposeful. It's similar mechanics to hiking or running uphill. But he was on the track once a week working high end efficiency. So he would get on, make sure I'm available to access gears, let's say, and he may hit a long run out in the mountains on real terrain. And then pretty much all the other volume in between was uphill, 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 uphill. So his aerobic, for example, what we're trying to accomplish here is what I'm outlining he did is so much aerobic work, spending time with an elevated heart rate and whatever zone he was trying to accomplish that day or effort level. Getting on real terrain is vitally important to actually turn it into a performance on race day. So he would go down and run fast and flat and do structured interval work and maybe get out in real terrain for the mountains once a week. And so suddenly he's doing 20 hours of aerobic conditioning a week. Only 2 sessions are on real terrain, but they're with a purpose. And so you become an aerobic monster. And as long as you can pair that with the mechanics of running and the structural integrity that pounding the ground requires, suddenly you look back and you're like, I'm a changed athlete because he could put in so much work uninjured. Is that how you understood, for example, it worked for him?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
Mhm.
half of it. And the other half is that it was enjoyable and actually effective for him. He realized, and I don't know if it was a realization or something he already knew, that if he had music on or something to watch in front of him, and he talked sometimes he played like Call of Duty Zombies on there, and sometimes he'd watch, BYU football games and just hike the
Mhm.
entire time, or he would listen to music. But if he had a TV in front of him and headphones, he could survive any amount of time on there. Where that wasn't the case with other activities, but he also found that he could get the cardiovascular, like the cardiac response he needed in that zone of 20 to 40%.
Right.
If he went much below it, he had to run because he wasn't getting his heart up. And then scientists have found in studies that kind of Goldilocks zone of running where between 20 and 30% incline for most people, your body doesn't really know the difference between running and hiking. They'd study heart rate and lactate levels and all oxygen utilization. And they found that somewhere between 20 and 30% for most athletes, your body didn't react any differently from running to hiking.
Hmm.
And it was
Meta
metabolically.
Yeah.
And what they used that for, mostly the premise of the study was to find out when should you run versus hike in races. But the other side of that is what can you do training wise? If your body doesn't know the difference between running and biking metabolically at that intensity level, well, if you walk instead of run, you could do way more of it, right? And it's way
Mhm.
less impact on you and it's way less stressful. So that kind of thing, pairing the what can I do a lot of with what actually works for me and what do I enjoy doing? Not everyone's going to love hiking, but we've had like Parker Valby, her thing became elliptical. And
Mhm.
Amelia Boone became elliptigo. And Meb was always famous for doing his elliptigo. And other people, it's the spin bike or the mountain bike, or people just develop their thing that they revert to. Where my happy place is just on this machine. I can do it. Morgan Schultz was the rower. She could sit on the rower for 2 hours a day, finding that thing. And then how do you implement it? And of course,
Uh,
then what are you leaving on the table that needs to be balanced out by, like you said, efficiency work or whatever you need to do to be effective?
all right. Uh,
Been a
let's
long
take
intro to this to make sure that it's very clear what we're talking about because it's very nebulous what we're talking about.
oh, it's not clear at all. That's why we're trying to clarify.
Mhm.
So let's start here. Specificity aside, whether you're a mile track athlete or an ultra marathoner in the mountains, I don't care what it is. If you had to pick your thing right now, the most broad strokes thing that you could double down on outside of your run volume to get in more volume that will make you better at all the things, what are you doubling down on outside of non-run work?
Are we saying me personally or my belief for athletes?
I don't care. Whatever you wherever you want to go with
Well,
this.
I've been thinking a lot about this, Kirk, because I am coming back from injury. And I have come to the conclusion that if I don't live in the mountains, because that would be my thing, just like steep mountain work, it's stairs.
Okay.
Pouring over my logs, going back over my notes, looking at workout blocks I've done where other things happened. And I'm like, wow, I was way more fit than I thought. Stair work is something I continually enjoy and I turn to when I don't know what else to do. And I can do a lot of it. And it seems to pop my fitness. It would be
What kind of
stairs.
like the stair mill or like going to real stairs because they're very different on how they're going to hit you because you got to go down the real ones to get back up them.
If I'm truly injured, stair mill. I bought, I don't know if you recall, and you do,
Mhm.
I'm sure, but the listeners may not because they haven't all been here. After leading into my first knee surgery, I bought a stair mill. And that was like, even back then, I knew this is something I can just do and it's easy on my body. But perfect world, I think going downstairs with fast feet, light feet, is really beneficial to an athlete. So outdoor is ideal for me.
I feel like the not the purpose, but the reason to go find your thing is to reduce impact so you can handle volume. So going downstairs would be the problem there. If
For
like,
some
oh
people, yes.
my knees hurt or my ankles hurt, that's why I need to find something else. And then I have to go down these concrete stairs. That could be a deal breaker for a lot of
Yes, it
people. But
could.
if you could handle it, for sure.
And that's why it's pairing it to you yourself. Downstairs do not pose an issue for me. I'm slightly toed in, especially on stairs. So if I have ankle issues, downstairs is often difficult on me. Like, it doesn't hurt my knees. It hurts some people's knees.
Mhm.
So if for me personally, I can build really good fitness on the stairs and I enjoy it. I can work harder and just listen to music, or like this most recent one I did, not even have any music, just focus on the stairs. And I can go aerobically and have an audiobook on or a podcast, and I can focus on that without losing focus going down the stairs. It's something that I can just burn hours away doing, or I can work hard if I want and get good quality work in on stairs as well. It just works well for me. That wouldn't be the case for everyone. But my answer is stairs, I've come to realize.
Okay. And what about the stimulus of stairs do you think is a good answer to make your running better? Like mechanically. Let's talk that out.
Well, first of all, the mechanics of it is that it's easy on my rear chain. It's the reason I don't choose the incline trainer is because so much of that angle of hitting just my forefoot and toe into the
Mhm.
treadmill or into the mountainside and going up, like that puts your calf and Achilles at a very lengthened, taut position, and that can cause issues. People sometimes get plantar fascia from incline work. The stair, you
Mhm.
land flat every time, and you can land on your toes if you want, but you don't have to. You can heel strike stairs if you want to, or just be
Mhm.
totally neutral. And so mechanically, it's safe for me, but it also forces you to drive power with no momentum. And I think that's one of the key things for me as a runner is that there is no momentum on stairs. Every step is earned. And to earn it efficiently, you have to drive power straight up off the ground. And you've run with me. I'm a little bow legged. I have a little side to side movement in my running. I'm not always driving power super efficiently directly into the ground. And stairs force me to do that. There is no wiggle room there. If you move to the side, if you have power exiting out to the side, if you're not planting and driving from your quads and glutes right into the ground, you're not going to have good clearance on the next stair, especially once you get
Mhm.
tired. And so that one piece is really key for me personally as a runner.
Yeah, you explained it well. Stairs and all facets of stairs, incline hiking, running, even on stairs, you could still call it a controlled fall, but it is the least amount of falling to help propel you forward, even less than like an incline trainer or climbing a real mountain,
Mhm.
because you have to go directly up,
Yes.
so to speak, to clear the stairs, which is roughly what 8 inches or so, probably. I don't know what traditional stair height is. 10. Somebody look that up. Anyways, you can't. You're not forced to do that in any other situation.
No.
So
No.
I get what you're saying. Okay, stairs.
I also think it's important because I can do all three phases of training, what I would call easy, medium, and hard on stairs.
Yep.
If I just do 1 foot per step, that's really I'm gonna cap out at high end aerobic. Like it's hard to get above aerobic threshold going every other stair. So it's just something I can click into and fall asleep doing. So I can do hours doing that in a week, and it's not an issue. And if you go 2 steps, that is a good like tempo-ish effort. And if you want to bound and sprint up the stairs, that gets you to wherever you want to get high intensity wise. So it's something that I don't have to struggle with on any given day of the week. I could do it many days of the week. If it's an easy day, I can get the work done, but I can also work hard. Where something like an elliptical, while some people can do high intensity intervals on the elliptical, I struggle to do that. I even struggle to do tempo work, threshold work. It's a chore for me to stay on task on the elliptical. And I share those same things with some other forms of exercise where it's hard for me to go easy or hard or threshold, whatever it's going to be. I don't have that issue on stairs.
It's a good option.
Yes.
How much does this stair mill cost?
Oh, I want to say I paid around $2,000 for my stair mill. I saw there's one on Facebook Marketplace near me right now down to $1,400, and I thought I don't need it, but it's a good deal. I might, and I'm not going to. I don't have space for it.
Yeah, I mean they have a similar like engine belt component like a treadmill would, so you're looking at a price point similar.
Yeah,
Uh,
but they're
right.
much more durable.
Yeah, hard to beat up. All
Yeah.
right.
What about you?
Glad you asked, Bracken. Just waiting for my turn.
It's yours.
I was thinking back, and this one is going to seem like I'm not going to do that to most of the people listening, and you're wrong. But I understand that this is region discriminant. And I was thinking back to my transition out of injury the last time and how well I raced going into the COVID year, actually, where the racing rug was pulled out from underneath us, and we did a lot of either time trialing racing or virtual racing. I was actually afforded the luxury of having a racing season pulled away from me while I
Mhm.
was ramping up, and it gave me time, right? So I was one of the fortunate ones. My glass was half full with it. Um, this is hindsight looking back. I don't think there is a single better thing to double down on than cross country skiing.
Mm.
Without question.
I did not see that coming.
Correct, because it's been a few years since I had to rely on it. Um, but I have never the way running makes your insides feel like they're going to explode when it gets to a certain degree, where it's the leg burn, but it's the heart, lungs, the internal, like, I'm so uncomfortable that I can't sustain this total body feeling of uncomfortability any longer. Cross country skiing gets me there, just like running does.
Mhm.
In fact, my issue with cross country skiing was that when I hit any sizable hills, like a recovery effort certainly goes out the window when you got to get up that hill in a power position and the heart rate's going to spike if you want to go up that hill with any sort of respectability. So it actually got me to work harder than my run stimulus would. And I know you need equipment. I know you need to be in the right part of the country in which you have access to snow and facilities. Unbelievable. I was looking back at the times I had raced in these local trail races, how I was doing in the few Spartans I had done, and the volume in which I was running by comparison. And now I'm getting older, but by large, I've been circling nearly the same time waters in some of these trail races, and they've had very similar conditions from year to year, with the exception of one. I'm in the same ballpark, running 3 times as much right now as I was 4 years ago. I raced 50K ultras shortly after that season with very big success. I've been within the same minute and a half in a 25K trail race with 2,200 feet of vert, running twice a week or running 5 or 6 days a week. And I look back and how it translated for me to climbing, especially to flat running. It worked on all of it. Cross country skiing is a cheat code if it's paired with, you talk the Matt Novakovic approach. As long as I was running 2 or 3 days a week, unbelievable engine work. It forces your upper body to engage with your lower body, which running does. It forced core engagement. And man, did my legs become just rock stars, because when you climb, you think running up a hill is hard. Try cross country skiing up one. And it prepared me way better than I anticipated. And so if I need to look elsewhere, and I don't know if it would bother my calf and Achilles, um, get some secondhand cross country skis. It can be a skill thing, as Bracken learned as well. You got to develop the skill to work it. And I'm going to give an easier answer for people, of course, but if there is any way, I am convinced that is absolutely the best thing to do for you. Without question, I would die on that rock. Cross country ski.
Okay, I really like it, and I wanna shortcut people's, pushback against this, saying, "Well,
Well, there's a
yeah, if
lot of
you."
reason to push back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna stop most of them other than the equipment pushback, which is they make inline skates for this.
Hmm.
They make skate style or ski style skates. And so you can do this in any climate. And high level skiers do this, as do other sports, to prepare. It's a fantastic workout.
Yes.
So you don't have to be in the winter to get the benefits of this. It's a little bit more free speed than skiing is, but you can work the same, you just work faster. So I agree wholeheartedly with all of the physical components to what you talked about there. All the
I felt,
benefits.
when you go swimming, hopefully many people can relate. You go swimming, you do a traditional front crawl, you're injured, you go and swim, and you get out of the pool and you look in the mirror and you're like, "Ka-choo, ka-choo." You're like, I am jacked right now. Like, it just fills you up, right? It feels
Mhm.
like the way it gives you a pump and the way it disperses and shunts blood is like how I felt cross country skiing. Like my arms were on fire, my core when I was really digging, my hips down to my ankles when I was pushing, not to mention my lungs and the back of my throat from breathing so hard in the cold air. It was just like one of those things that like made me like more well-rounded, like
Mhm.
stronger and aerobically better. And so I liked it for that because it leaves nothing untouched.
Yeah.
And so I liked it for that reason too.
And I talked power transfer before, like putting your effort directly into the ground and getting as much back from that. Skiing's one of those things that teaches you that as well. Like in running, you can start being a little inefficient, but it's a sliding scale. Like you get a couple seconds per mile slower. A couple in skiing, when your power transfer drops off, your speed plummets.
Cool.
And the difference between keeping momentum rolling on the skis and not is really, really noticeable with your effort. And it rewards being able to transfer power well, which I think is important for a lot of people. So I really do like that answer. It has some
Um,
caveats to it, of course.
yeah.
It's
Oh
more
yeah.
costly. You have to learn the skill of upkeep and maintenance and prepping your skis and all that, but it's not rocket science, but I love it as an exercise.
It's an upfront commitment to learn. You can start classic. I was skate skiing, which is a whole different thing because it's tricky. Um, I luckily found a natural place with it, but classic ski where you put your skis in a track and go straight forward and backwards, much quicker to learn. I think it's less effective slightly, but not much because running is linear and so is classic skiing. So
Mhm.
it's a nice translate. Okay, I'm going to give my answer that people don't roll their eyes at,
Okay.
but I hope. But that would be my thing, by the way. If I had to pick one for these next 4 months, that's it for sure. Mine would be yours is the stairs. Mine would be uh, continuous compromised uh, Metcon work without question. So it would be big Metcon circuits, whether I'm using probably the assault bike or the rower, but it is as simple as I'm going to do 20 wall balls and 25 calories, and then 25 walking lunges and 25 calories, and I'm going to go back and forth between implement and compromise sort of strength, explosive movement, and I'm going to super saturate volume with that with cross training equipment. That would be what I would choose.
I think we all knew you were going to get to the assault bike at some point in this conversation.
Yeah.
And I want to say that because I still believe that the assault bike or any sort of fan bike is probably the single best all-around tool for building all-around fitness. Just pure what you put into the workout to what you get out. I don't know if I've met anything that's more effective than the fan bike. But the reason I didn't choose it is because I can't live with that bike. I can't do it day in and day out. I
I
have
think
to,
anything you have to sit on
yeah.
is tough.
And it seems like you're one or the other. The type of person that can't wait to get on the bike and falls in love with the bike, or the person who's like, this has to be programmed as a specific workout, and I get up for it and I work hard. But like, I can't just get on the assault bike for a couple of weeks and go easy to moderate every day. Can't do that.
Mhm.
I like if I was forced to, I'm sure I would, but I would complain the whole time internally. It wouldn't be sustainable for me, but stairs I would kind of look forward to in a weird way. Hill work in general, I look forward to on a daily basis. And Lisa always goes, I don't understand you. I don't know why you would want when in doubt, you find a hill. But that's just what I default towards. And when in doubt, I try not to be on a machine. I've tried it. I've tried a winter where I got up every morning to get on the spin bike and I started watching Arrow, that WB show, and there's like not
CW.
CW. That's right,
I was a
CW.
host on the CW.
That's right.
That
I'm
Arrow
sorry,
was on while I was a host there, so I'm familiar.
CW, and there were like 9 seasons, so I had unlimited content, and I'd never watched it, and it's the kind of junky, kind of entertaining TV that's right up my alley when I'm working out, and it became a chore after like a week. And I stuck through it, but I did not enjoy it after a while. So again, like you have to pair the thing that you can do. But your assault bike, could you do that every day? How often could you do your compromised Metcon, your assault bike, or even your easy work? How many hours could you do per week like that?
Well, first of all, I think what you're distilling it down to is maybe your thing is the thing that you naturally gravitate towards that
I think that's a
continues
big component, yeah.
to have you wanting to show up. Um, well, here's the thing though, is ideally whatever you're going to choose to double down on or you're defaulted to double down on is still paired with running. So it's like, okay, if I add in 3 days of an assault bike Metcon on top of 3 or 4 days of running, like, can I do 3 days a week? Of course. Anybody can have the discipline to do 3 days of something they hate a week, let alone something they sort of enjoy.
Mhm.
So, with that said, like my system might be 3 days a week of assault bike metcons with 3 days a week of cross country skiing if I were completely injured, and find the two and go back and forth. Long, steady work on the skis, short, metabolic inside out work on the assault bike metcons. And then I have my recipe, right? I don't know if there's any single thing other than running, which I could show up 6 days a week and do that I have enough love for, right? I don't
Okay.
know about you, but what do you think?
I don't know because I've never done stairs exclusively for a long time. But my guess is I could do stairs every other day indefinitely.
Okay.
I've
Why
done
don't we do this?
hills every day for, or let's say 6 out of 7 days, some sort of hilly running. Did that for over a year in Colorado at one point.
Unreal terrain.
Yeah, real terrain. Now, sometimes it was a hilly loop, but I would say at least 4 runs per week, I was uphill for at least 40 minutes. That never got old to me.
You're also in a pretty new, novel, exciting place. Very
That was my
motivated.
final year. So it
Okay.
was new, but it wasn't brand new. If I had to, because I had to work into I couldn't handle that much up and down initially. But my 3rd year there, I was probably doing, if it was a time graph of my week, probably 80% of my time, 70% of my time was spent going uphill.
Put it this way, as we're deciphering through what to pick, and then I want to like sort of tell people how to implement this.
Yes.
Okay. Um, you are in a sport. You are one of the best. You are one of the best in your areas. You're dominating the church 5K scene in your area. You're the man or woman, right? Standing on top of the whatever 5K that's put on every weekend. And then you hear this stud or studette from another sport, an aerobic sport is coming over and they're going to give this running thing a try. It's like, oh, like I don't know what they can do running wise, but I know what they came from is
Hmm.
scary. And this person could be a problem, could dethrone my church 5K prowess. What sport or sports would you be like, ooh, shoot, I'm not. I'm worried that's could be a problem because I have one immediately, for example. So think of it that way
Yeah.
first, and then say, okay, what is that thing? And then what if I did more of that thing? So what is your thing? What would you be like? Oh shoot.
Well, I will start by saying if it were a 5K, there would be no sport that would worry me
Okay, okay.
if it wasn't a running sport. But the further it gets from smooth running,
You
the
sure?
more
Maybe
we've
like a
seen this happen.
soccer player, maybe like a pro soccer player. 5K would be
I don't think I'd worry. 5K is
midfielder.
too long.
No, is it okay? They play 90 minutes in the big leagues.
Yeah, there's a lot of standing.
Okay, I was just making sure.
I'd be more worried about them in like a mile than a
Hmm.
5K. Anyway, but we've seen it in the mountain world, the ultra world, the OCR world. Nordic sports are scary in how they translate to the trails in the mountains. Skiing translates to hills. 100%. If I was doing my, let's say the Tennessee Mile, I won that division the last time I was there. If you had to pick a sport to come in and worry me that wasn't a running sport, I would not want to see a high level Nordic skier out on that hilly loop. Not one bit.
So cross country skier leads my way without question.
Hmm.
So right away, that tells me something.
Yep.
But the other one, if you look through sport, you look through our sport, let's say the ultra trail scene, we obviously were into Spartan very heavily for many years. Any sort of biker, any road biker, mountain biker that was good, that pursued it at a high level, you're like, They're eventually going to be a problem. Maybe it'll be today. Maybe it'll be tomorrow. I don't know. Ryan Atkins comes in and takes third at the World Championships off of basically bike training in his first Spartan World Champs, I believe. Was it third? His first year?
Second.
With
Lewis Spears.
Biking. Not just casual, like I'm not a hobby biker. Like this dude cycle. Look at Rylan Shadig, for example, who came across some others in our sport who were very purposeful bikers, cross-country skiing or biking. And I know biking is not glorious. And there's an interview with Jakob Ingebrigtsen where they're asking about it's Cole Hawker or Cooper Tier. I hear some of your competition is spending lots of time on the bike, and that may be credit to their success. And point blank, Jakob goes, "That is stupid. If you're not running, it is not making you better." And he just bashes it. But we're not trying to run 1500s like Jakob Ingebrigtsen. We're trying to run for 20x that or more at times. And so it's different.
Yeah. And he can handle 160 kilometers per week training, 180 kilometers per week training.
Correct.
He doesn't need to supplement. If you can do this, the conversation is not for him. He can max out his available training hours running and has had a remarkably healthy career doing it. This is for the people who can't max those hours out. Then life's different. But I will say there's one caveat to your biking thing. I agree with you, but I would put mountain biking first and then all other forms of biking.
Sure.
Road biking where you are in an aero position or a semi-aero.
Rear chains, brutal.
Seems to change your body a little bit. Eventually, it actually changes your morphology, like your posture, everything. It shortens up certain areas of your body. It hunches and rounds other.
You end up looking like Gollum.
Yeah, and you run funnier.
Yeah.
But mountain biking, you change position so much that it kind of just works everything. And the mountain bikers really translate well. Not that some road bikers don't. But again, if you told me a pro cyclist, pro road cyclist, and pro mountain biker were both coming over to my trail race, I'd be marking that mountain biker first.
So I'm trying to use the logic of what would scare me. What would I be like? I respect that background, or just people I know who have done the crossover, right?
Correct.
They've come from another sport and came in well. So if I were to try to simplify this for myself, I'd be like, well, if the cross-country skier is going to scare me, guess what I might want to make my thing? Or if the mountain biker is going to scare me, what might I want to make my thing to add an additional volume? So I would start there. And that's where my logic guides me.
Yeah, I like that. And I think mine would go to, what do I find myself always turning to when in doubt? What do I find myself looking forward to? Or what do I find myself not choosing? Like for me, it's the bike. I find myself finding reasons not to get on the spin bike, not to get on the ski erg. I find myself doing more rowing than assault bike. I don't know why, but I think you trust that thing. But uphills, for me, it's always uphill. Whether it's stairs or incline trainer or ski hills, it doesn't matter. My training love language, it's hills, 100%. So I need to lean into that. And then the other piece I think is, what are the deviations from your sport? So obviously stairs are the farthest deviation of running from running. You could still consider that, like that's bipedal movement, but it's not running. So then one stage closer to that would be hiking up and down a mountain or running up and down a mountain, and then steep trail running, and then trail running, and then, closer and closer and closer. So following that logical progression down to what is that, like that meeting ground between non-impact, and I love it, and sports specific.
Yeah. So, I mean, do we want to open that can and actually explore it, or because it could take a while?
Yeah.
Or we do this. So you're wanting to increase your volume. You want to level up. You're afraid or have already learned that more run volume typically doesn't end well for you, but you're willing to commit more. Whatever that commitment to is, how do we set up our week to do so, to make it effective, so we can all of a sudden blossom in the spring and be like, I just jumped levels and I wasn't running any more than I was, but I added in these other things that made me better at running. That would be the perfect way this would go. How would we start there with? Just look at our week.
I think there's really two routes to take here. The first is that you build your week around that thing, or you build your week around running. I think you have to choose which one it's going to be, and that might
How do
be
you know which one it should be? How
I
do
think
you
it's
know?
determined by how healthy are you, which one are you excited about doing, which one can you do more of, all stage of your season, anything like that. Maybe you need to build up tolerance to that thing. Maybe it's biking. You can't sit in the saddle every day early on. Then you can't build your week around it. Maybe it's hill work, treadmill incline. Your Achilles and calves and plantar fascia can't handle that angle every day. So it can't be built around that. But choosing one or the other. And the way I'm currently looking at it is that thing becomes your training style, like a Matt Novakovic, where the vast majority of what you're doing is not the running, it's the other thing for massive amounts of time. And then how do you plan your running to maximize the benefits of what you've been doing and minimize the risks of losing running fitness? The other way is just simply adding in time on top of your running schedule, doing something else.
So how banged up are you? And what can you tolerate?
And what can you
Well,
tolerate? What can you
uh-huh.
sustain, probably, is most important. Because all this
Well,
comes back down to consistency. Dabbling doesn't seem to do the same thing as going in on something.
so what do you consider dabbling and what do you consider going in on something? Like I have an initial recommendation I want to offer,
Do it.
but you could consider dabbling maybe.
Well, let's hear it. Maybe we'll finally disagree on things.
Now I'm feeling insecure about my offering here. If it were me, what I would let's say you're able to run close to your peak run volume or maybe slightly less due to an injury, but like you're able to run to an extent in which you're happy with. I would start twice a week as a second workout on top of what you're already doing. And what it would look like for me in a perfect world would be let's say you keep your Monday through Saturday schedule with Sundays off, or maybe you run a Tuesday through Sunday. Doesn't matter. I'd have a Tuesday quality session. You still should have some sort of quality in your off season, folks. And then I would add in some aerobic volume as a PM session on that Tuesday, let's say. So all I'm doing is more aerobic stim on the new implement, putting on my cross country skis and going and enjoying myself, right? Put a podcast on and go. But then, like on Thursday or Friday, I'm strapping my skis on and your boy's going to go get a 45-minute threshold session where I'm going to lay it down, but I'm still doing my midweek long run that afternoon, or I'm adding it in. Like I'm still hitting my run as I would that day, but I'm layering in this new stimulus in a quality session type way because it's much safer to do that quality in a less impact uh, modality. So I would add in one additional recovery session, but then I would add in a quality session on that implement as well. On top of your already, like, it's just more work. Maybe
Mhm.
it's 90 more minutes of work that week in total. And one of those is with purpose. So you're getting an extra hit of something high capacity as well. So that's how I would start. And this is just like for me personally, and you can take it or leave it if you want listening, but that's what I would start with. If you're able to run a respectable run volume that you're somewhat happy with already.
I
Is
like it.
that's not dabbling?
No, I think you add in with doubles or finishers or buy-ins. For me, I would do doubles or finishers. Let's say it's the spin bike or the elliptical or whatever it's going to be. Start with I'm running blank. I can run 30 miles per week, but I would like to run 50 miles per week, but I can't handle it. Well, how much extra time would it take you to get to 50 miles per week of running? And you add that in through double workouts or finishers on the other piece of equipment. And you just
Mm.
feel what 50 miles a week or 7 hours a week of training feels like. And you let your body feedback tell you what you do next. All right, I'm adding 20 more minutes each session on this machine, or 30 or 40. And you just keep moving it up and see what can I handle? What feels good? How much can I add in until it negatively impacts my running? And then I find that level and I back off one notch and I sit there and then gradually nudge it up again. I think that's the easiest, simplest way of expanding your thing into training volume is you tack it on and you keep the running as fresh as possible so you don't interfere with it.
You bring up a good question, or pose a good question without knowing it, being like, what if it does impact your running as a sacrificial lamb to getting ramped up? Is that okay? I
I
would say,
think
yeah.
I think in the off season it's really okay or good.
Yeah. That's what my gut tells me. You know what I used to do when I was waffling in and out of injury, running 3 days a week a lot. Um, but then I would see my run log and it'd be like, you ran 28 miles this week. And I felt kind of like, that's it. But I was putting in time those other, I was, 6 days a week of purposeful aerobic work, but it never really showed on paper the same way to me. And so we used to talk, we don't talk about it much anymore, but we used to refer to Badger miles a
Mhm,
good bit, where the Wisconsin Badgers under Nuttycombe, I believe it was back in the day. This is pre GPS days, right? So we just had our Timex. This is the technology. This is late '90s, early 2000s. And he said, when you log your miles, like 7 minutes is a Badger mile, whether you're running 5:30 or 8:30. Most of these people are running faster than 7 minute miles on the men's team, right? They never run that slow, so to speak.
mhm,
Anyways, so everything was just 7 minutes equal to Badger mile. How many Badger miles did you run this week? 70. Great. Point I'm getting at is I took that 7 minutes and I just drew it out. So if I spent 60 minutes on the assault bike, that was 8.5 Badger miles, and I would log it. And so at the end of the week, I would always circle my Badger miles. Like I ran 28, but I cross trained 32, and I got 60 miles for the week.
mhm,
And so translating, like I run, my recovery runs at, I run 9 minute miles. Well, maybe 9 minutes is your Badger mile. And you get rewarded. For me, it took that dopamine hit of seeing, like, no, that was a 60-mile week, Kirk. You spent 32 miles roughly, if you count 7 minute miles in time and cross training. And so I still have to remind myself, if I revert back to having to cross train a good bit right now, I am absolutely going to use that and say,
mhm.
I put in 70 miles of work this week. And so it's a nice hack, whether you're a 10-minute miler or a 12-minute miler, whatever miles is your rough average works. And so I like that approach just because it makes me feel good and it feels more tangible. Yes, you can just look at how much time did I work by your Strava can tell you all modalities. And that works well. Maybe that works for you. For me, I still need to see miles. Then it
Mhm.
seems more productive. So, anyways, that's my little hack that worked for me mentally.
I like that.
Have
And
you ever
it's
done that?
yeah, I mean, that's how I started with Badger miles. I was using my oven timer
Yeah.
to come back and be like and I think at the time, what was it, 7 minutes for men and 8 minutes for women?
Yep.
And I just chose 8 minutes because I wasn't very fast. I think you just whenever in doubt, you choose a slower number. Like, when I'm on the incline trainer, I think I call it, like, 8 or 9 minutes. I just count every 8
Mhm.
or 9 as a mile. And that's if I'm at, like, 30 or 40%, I might call it 10. But I just kinda guesstimate. This was worth about 6 miles of fatigue to me today. I actually play real loose with the rules on that. But I think the
Mhm.
point is you choose the lower end so that you're not fluffing yourself up, but it gives you, like you said, that little hit. All right, this was worth this amount of work to me this week. I think that's important to do.
Just people are listening to a running podcast, their brains go back to running. Mine
Yep.
certainly compares everything to it. And if I can just see like a mileage on the schedule, I would even do it with a lot of vert in there or mountain, like mountain running, where I only in quotes get 15 miles in a 2.5 hour long run, but on flat terrain it would have been 20. Like I used to even skirt it that way and be like, no, Kirk, remember, this is actually, you ran 70 this week, even though the paper says 60.
It's
Remind
70
yourself
worth
of
of
that.
effort.
Correct. 70 worth of effort. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure there's a few that it would help if they did that.
Yeah, I
Make it
like
seem
that.
worth their time. Yeah.
So the other route to that is the Novakovic thing, the going in on the alternative form and then using running to stay sharp or effective. So like let's use mine for example, the stair work. Let's say I'm doing every other day on the stairs, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Stair work. 4 times per week I'm doing stair work. 3 times per week I'm running. At this point, you have to look at it oppositely of the other one, which is I just need to make sure that I am getting every benefit out of the running necessary to be ready to race or to return to full run volume in the future. And what that means is there's more of an emphasis on you have to do faster running. When I first started exploring trail and mountains, when I got into OCR 1 year out of college, I kept running into Matt Carpenter, his advice on training. He's a legend in the mountain running community in Colorado for decades, held the Pikes Peak ascent and marathon record, like untouchable. All the best in the world came in and couldn't touch it. And he just had his Leadville 100 course record broken.
Mhm.
Decades it stood for. And he always talked about a staple of his training week was like roughly 12 by 400 at 5K pace, right around that 12 to 16 by 400 at a 5K pace. And I never understood it. I'd always think if that's his most important workout of the week, how is he racing 2 to 4 hours or all the way up to 100 miles? Like it's not computing to me. And over time, what I realize is that he does so much mountain running and so much vert that the most important quality run workout of his week was skill based.
Yeah.
It wasn't building his engine. It was running a stride that countered all the shuffling miles that he did and kept him sharp and efficient as a runner. I couldn't grasp that early on, but that's the kind of work you would have to make sure you're including if I'm doing something like stair work 4 days per week, because I'm never once opening up my stride. Never once. And I would need work that would work at my best stride to balance that. 5K is a good way of doing that.
Yeah, you're putting in so much engine work. That's not the problem. It's, do my legs move efficiently as quickly as I want them to with power and purpose? And you can lose touch of that so quickly. So a lot of times, maybe in off season, um, if you're a traditional runner, logic would say, well, let's double down on our threshold work right now. Let's think long and grindy. We don't need to spend too much time in overspeed training because we're not racing anything soon. So we can gravitate towards longer and grindier. Whereas if you're going to use your thing or cross training as your main modality, you need to offset that with the opposite, which is the turnover work to make sure you can access your gears.
Yeah.
Because the slow stuff will come back quick and easy. That's not going to be a problem. But running fast efficiently and not super costly, that's going to go by the wayside if you're not running much. And
Yep.
so I agree with you. If then you got to shorten your interval duration and make them staples so we can it's there when you're ready to return full volume running.
I think the more volume you do not running, the more fast running needs to be a point of emphasis for your running days. If you're doing a lot of elliptical or cycling or hiking incline work, that's all a clipped, compact stride you're using. You need something that gets you off your toes, gets good hip extension, gets your trail leg behind you, uses your full stride, and hits the ground with purpose. If I'm jogging and hiking stairs, I'm not shuffling on the trails. That's
Mm-hmm.
redundant because trail shuffling isn't sport specific to running a fast 5K either. Barely more sport specific than jogging up and down stairs. And so I don't need to double down on the thing I'm already doing. I need to make sure that the skill and efficiency component of running gets purposeful work every week. And I think that's one spot people tend to go wrong is I'm going into base building mode. And so I'm going to remove my quality running and really do a lot of hiking and biking on top of it. And I'm removing the intensity of my running because I'm adding so much more fatigue in my cross training that I don't want to risk it. And that's fine. You don't have to have volume of intensity on your interval days, but you need interval days, even if they're brief, to keep your stride together.
Well, and the other side of that coin too is if you were to let it go completely, then you're going to open up a whole new can of worms when you start to re-implement it at some point and you've been away from it for so long that suddenly new overuse injury is going to pop up or you're not going to handle that sort of stimulus because you took 3 months trying to become a monster doing these other things and then you go hit your first couple of speed workouts on the track and you're wrecked and suddenly the hamstring is bugging you or because it just wasn't ready for that impact and power. And so just making sure that it's a clean transition once you're able to run as much as you want or more, I think that that higher output is important just for that transition when hopefully maybe you're able to lighten the cross training and increase the running if your body proves it can. And so I think it's also important for that reason too.
All right, we have 3 minutes, Kirk. I want to wrap this up
Oh,
with a little exercise for you.
okay. I love
I,
exercising.
I'm going to list off all the ways I've heard of people doing this. And I want you to tell me if any of them aren't worth doing or less effective. So we have
Okay.
incline hiking, we have skiing of some sort, spin bike, road bike, mountain bike, elliptical, elliptigo, stair work, rower, ski erg, And swimming, aqua jogging, let's call it there. Are any of those exercises you would say are not useful enough to make your thing
Well,
or less
half
effective?
you just listed a lot.
Mhm.
Um, half of those I don't have much experience with, so that's with consistency, so that's tough. Oh boy. You can get rid of the elliptical. That's silly. Why are you smiling?
Because I hear a lot of people yelling at their phone right now at you, Kirk. Have
I
you
have no
done the
idea. I've never
elliptical ever?
No, I've never done an elliptical.
You can get legitimate work done on that thing.
Can you really?
Yeah,
I
you can.
always think for some reason when I think of the elliptical, do you remember that machine, the Gazelle?
Yep.
With the guy with, like,
Like
long permed
Tony
hair and this
Gazelle or whatever his name
yeah,
was.
and he just
Yeah.
fricking, like, looked like a Flintstone character in their car on that thing, and for some reason, I parallel that to the elliptical in my brain, like
Mhm.
that silly looking movement.
No, it's
Um,
legitimate.
okay, well,
I
you
would
know
say
what?
more
It's
so than an elliptical.
actually, do you know what I can say? All right, I've done it because I committed to it at periods of time, and it didn't do anything for me if I think about it. Swimming in the pool. I don't know one swimmer that comes over to running and kills it. They just don't. They haven't taken impact in forever. It's so different. I'm not worried about a swimmer background going to be a world champ in running. Just not. And I've gotten in there and I dedicated 2 months straight to swimming, mostly front crawl. And I mean, turn myself inside out. I might as well have sat on the couch with bonbons with my grandma because I got felt the same way by the time when I started running again, and it didn't seem to translate. So I'm gonna say traditional swimming.
I'm gonna say 2 things. The first is
Am I
that
upsetting people today?
I couldn't pick
What's
a
that?
bonbon out of a lineup.
Either could I, but I have no idea. And those like strawberry candies in the wrappers, like I don't even know where people get those. That's a grandma treat.
Okay. But I will say that I agree with you on swimming. I don't think most people have any benefit to swimming other than you're getting exercise in without impact. But in terms of building fitness, I think there's only one person that works for, and that's ex-collegiate swimmers. I think if you have
Probably
not swam, swum,
swum for
if
sure. Swum, yeah.
you haven't
Or
swimmed at the collegiate level
swummed.
minimum, you are not efficient enough at swimming to get a heart rate response that will be able to last long enough to outlast how quickly your arms are going to burn out.
Did
You
you
are
just ask this last question so we could upset people? Because inevitably, by picking some of these things out, we're going to upset some people that disagree adamantly.
no, because some people will waste their time on forgetting that it's a combination of what you can get a workout out of, what you really like to do, and what will help you.
Hmm.
You can't only do the thing you like to do. And so I have worked with several college swimmers who can go in and just threshold swim, Kirk. and they and
My
then
hat's off to you.
if they're running 3 days a week outside of that, they're getting their skill work in and it's actually making them a better runner because their aerobic capacity and anaerobic capacity are rising. But if you were not a collegiate swimmer, you will not have spent the hours and years necessary to be good enough to get that response. So I would say yes, water-based things are the single worst way for most people to get their fitness in. Almost anything else you can get good at quickly. Swimming is not one of them.
Yeah, that jumps to the top for me. I speak out of ignorance about the elliptical because of the gazelle. So that's what about you? Anything else?
No. No, I believe anything that you like doing and can get a heart rate response out of is absolutely worth going in on and getting yourself up to real big training volume if your
What about
lifestyle can handle it.
what about rucking?
You can't get a heart rate response.
So you'd say no to rucking because there's going to be people that are upset with you over that.
I think rucking is great for people who want to ruck. I don't think it's has any impact on sports performance in anything outside of rucking itself. And
Yeah.
high heart rate isn't really a thing in the rucking world. And you can't get your heart rate up and peg it in a zone while walking unless it's uphill.
So you'd add rucking to the list.
I would add rucking to swimming. It's a two. Yeah, I'd put it below swimming unless you're doing it uphill.
That it becomes a different thing.
And then I
Hey,
would lower the weight down to like close to body weight or like 10% of your body weight or under. And then I would just make it incline hiking.
Cody Moat went to the mountains for 10 days elk hunting with a pack on his back and came back and was a world champ 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Call that rucking, but a lot of it was uphill and
He
downhill.
freshened up from 16 years of endurance training.
That's more what it probably was. All right. Well, we can't help people without just upsetting a few too. So I think we did both. Is that a wrap here?
Yeah, let's just make one inflammatory statement. If you want to be a good runner, don't waste your time swimming or rucking.
All right. Zing.
And there's no college ruckers. So swimming, you beat out rucking.
And by the way, we should have even touched on this, but if you are simply looking to add volume as a runner and you've been a traditional flat concrete road runner, start doing some of your stuff uphill on the treadmill at 15%. And that might be your single most simple hack without all this complexity we've just talked about. Like just add in 2 uphill runs a week on top of your flat running. And that could be literally your ticket. Just saying, by the way.
Until next time, ladies and gents.
Goodbye, all.